Day. And you know what that means. That means it is time, once again, for us to journey against the wall. So let us proceed. So today, we're going to start off looking in 2 Kings chapter 18. And I want to read with you. Let's look at verse 26. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and Shebna and Joah said to Rabshakeh, "Please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. Do not speak to us in the language of Judah, with the hearing of the people who are on the wall." But the Rabshakeh said to them, "Has my servant sent me to speak these words to your masters and to you, and not to the men sitting on the wall, who are doomed with you to eat their own dung and drink their own urine?" Yuck. So, we start here. Again, threats to Judah, threats to the king, threats to God's people of being attacked. And what happens here is this guy, he's like the king's real dude. He comes and he's basically threatening Judah. He's threatening Hezekiah and the people, and he's saying, look, you're going to be destroyed. Well, the thing is, he's speaking to them in their own tongue, and they're like, okay, wait, stop. Just speak to us in Aramaic. We understand it. We're the leaders. And he's like, no, because what he's trying to do here, he's speaking in their own tongue, because he's not only just threatening the king and the officials, but he wants the whole people to hear this, to feel disheartened, to feel like there's no hope, and they'll give up without a fight. Now, eventually, he goes to the king, and the king, all the leaders, all the people, they tear their clothes. They're all this, oh no, it's the end. And Isaiah comes along, and God's like, no, matter of fact, they're going to fall. So don't worry about it. I got you. Hooray! But then I'm going to look into chapter 20, okay? I'm going to combine a couple of walls today. And in chapter 20 it says, in those days Hezekiah was sick and near death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, went to him and said to him, "Thus saith the Lord, set your house in order, for you shall die, and not live." Then he turned his face toward the wall and prayed to the Lord, saying, "Remember now, O Lord, I pray, how I have walked before you in truth and with a loyal heart, and have done what was good in your sight." And Hezekiah wept bitterly. So, they get threatened. They're like, oh no, we're going to die. Isaiah comes, says God's not going to let that happen, and he's going to take care of you, and it's all going to work out. Hooray! Then Hezekiah becomes ill, and he's going to die, and he sends Isaiah to give him this kind of personal message, and get your house in order, you're going to die. And he's like, he basically just turns, and he really whips barely. He literally prays. And I know this kind of sounds self-serving, but he's being faithful and asking God, saying, remember what I did, and remember what I'm trying to do for you. And so Isaiah's like on his way out, and God's like, turn around. I've heard his prayer, and go tell him I'm going to give him 15 more years. So Isaiah goes back. He tells him, look, this is what's going to happen. He says, how shall I know? And there's this whole deal about the way the sun moves, and if it moves that way, then you're going to be okay. And so Hezekiah gets 15 more years. Now this is amazing, because God is like telling him, he told him, get your house in order, which is not often something that he allows, but he tells him, get your house in order. And he prays, Isaiah comes back 15 more years, which is God still telling him to get your house in order. He gives him more time, but he lets him kind of know when it's all going to come to an end still. So everything's great. Then comes along these people from Babylon. And the king decides, I'll show him everything I got. God's like, Isaiah, go back to the king. So he does. And he's like, what'd you show him? He said, everything. I want to know just how much we got. And Isaiah's like, okay, God said because you did this, your people is going to be carried into Babylon. Now, if you know the Bible, you know what happens there. But he's like, okay, King Hezekiah is going to die, then the people will go. I got to thinking about this. So I could have done one on one and one wall lesson on the other, but I kind of combined them because of this. Hezekiah hears the threats and he's like, oh no, and God's like, you're going to be okay. And then he's told you're going to die. And he's like, oh, please, Lord. And, he's told you get more time. Then he turns around, he's like, hey, look at me, look what I got. And it ends up costing him the kingdom. This kind of goes with what I was talking about last week, about being obedient to God in all things. Humans, we're fickle. And we like to think that we can be good and we can do good, but we can't. Apart from God, there is no good. Except for Christ. And so we have to understand that we're gonna have times where we're gonna be like, oh no, we're just attacked on all sides, and we're gonna want to give up. But God is the one who stands before us. Christ is the one who lives within us, and he's the one that's encouraging us. He's standing beside us through all life's challenges. Take it a step further. We look at his near death, but yet more time. God is giving us another day, and we need to take advantage of it because we know our days are numbered. But in doing so, we need to remember that this is the life God gave us. Don't get caught up to where we brag on our own self and we do things that raise ourselves up. Remember, we're not put here to glorify ourselves. We were put here to glorify the one who made us. We are to show Christ through our lives. We are to show him and to give him glory. It's so easy to get caught up in the things of the world, to feel like our back's against the wall. It's got us feeling small every time we're attacked at all angles, not remembering that God is on our side. And if God is on our side, who can stand against us? And also to remember, don't get caught up in yourself, but put God first. I know this is kind of starting to sound like a broken record, but it is what it is. And we have to say, okay, I'm going to put away the old man and I'm going to live the new creation that God has made me. In doing so, we glorify Christ in our lives, and we do this. And because in the end, we don't want everything that we built to be torn away and thrown to the side and someone else gets it. We want to be able to leave a legacy. What that legacy will be is what we pour into. If we pour into the things of ourselves, that's what's going to be left. But when we pour in the things of Christ, that'll be eternal. It'll do more in the long run, I promise you. Don't get discouraged, okay? That's what I want to leave with you. Don't get discouraged. Trust in God. Be obedient to him. And always, he will lead your path. I hope that blessed you. I hope that did great things for you. I hope it encouraged you, and you'll go out and live to glorify him. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you then.